Welcome to How to Get Over Your Ex, a podcast on getting over your ex without it just taking time. I'm your host, breakup coach Dorothy. Let's turn your pain into power and your heartbreak into happy. Hello, my brave hearts. How is everyone doing this week? I have a really amazing podcast episode for all of you today. It's super fun. So at the end of every Get Over Your Ex program, I have a number of different individuals who are graduating the program. This most recent round, I had a lot of ideas for different podcasts. I think we're recording 4 different podcasts just from this one group around their experience, but also topics that have been brought up to my attention. Things that they thought would be important for you to all know, that they thought was important for to share. And I'm just very excited to talk about it. So today, one of the topics that was brought up by a Braveheart alumni now, so cool, is talking about dating and when are we supposed to know when to date? And we talk about this in the program, but it's not something that I talk a lot about on the podcast. I think the only dating, I think there's 2 dating episodes on my podcast so far, one about manifesting your new partner. And then the other one is around not compromising your epic life, which isn't like dating specific, but I talk about want matches and connection circles and the stuff that we do within the program that's kind of based around that. So today we just really want to cover this specific topic about when do we date and how do we know we're ready to date. And I've brought on 3 amazing Braveheart alumni who are ready to share about their epic failures, their epic successes, their whole experience around it, and kind of where they are in the journey. And I also just want to preface all of this is it's always going to be an ongoing uncovering of yourself. It's going to be a process and a journey of like figuring out what's working for you. Like I've talked about before in the podcast, there's really no rules when it comes to a breakup. And so everyone's learning their own way to handle the breakup, but that also means everyone's learning how to venture into dating again. And we are working on figuring out what that looks like for each individual. And so I'm so excited to talk about it here with all of you today. So without further ado, I want to give the floor over to the Braveheart alumni. I'm going to have each of you introduce yourself just a little bit, give them a background of like who you are, what happened in your breakup, where you are within that, and also, of course, the whole dating thing. So don't tell us too much about when and how do you know when to date, but tell us where you are within that experience, and then we'll dive into that question. Cool. I will have Katy go first because you're at the top of my screen.
All right. So I just finished the program and my situation was a little bit different than everyone else's because the person I was trying to get over, I was never actually in an official relationship with. And so all of the things that, you go through in a relationship, I was going through while not actually being in a relationship. And so because I never really had a beginning and I never really had an end, I felt like it was extremely difficult to get past that and kind of know when to start over again and what exactly I was even doing in a relationship.
I love it. Amazing. Carol, you go next. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah. So I'm Carol from Australia. This was my second round of the program, so it was very different experience, but it all sort of worked in together really well. And actually going through the second round was me working on dating. So I got some really good insights from it. But my breakup was, I don't even remember how long ago it was now. That's how much I forget it. But yeah, I did a lot of waffling back and forth with my ex, and it ended up with him starting to see someone else. So I sort of really had to move away from being obsessed with him. But yeah, going into the dating world now, and going through the second program, it's definitely it's an eye opener, and it's all about having your own back, I think. So there's a lot of moments where I'm like, you feel like you're starting to get to know someone, and you're starting to like sort of get a little bit obsessed with them. You've always got to go back to having your own back in case anything happens.
I love it. I'm so excited to dive into this. Jessica, go ahead and introduce yourself, boo.
Hi. So I am also a new Braveheart alumni. Super excited to be here. My breakup was roughly 6 months ago. I found the program as I was 3 months into my breakup. And basically, this was my first serious relationship. It was my first love. And then, of course, my first heartbreak. So I was in the depths of it when I pretty much got to this program. And of course, I'd spent my time trying to figure out how I was going to feel better. And it wasn't until I was searching for things on the podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and I found Dorothy. And then like that day I binged, I don't know, something like 25 episodes at one time. And I'm just like, okay, this is what I need. This is what's helping me. So joined the program, and basically I just wanted to reconnect with myself and feel like I had more control over what I wanted for my life and just feel better basically. So yeah.
So fun. Like I cannot, I'm just obsessed with these people. I wish that you all could see my face as I'm saying these things, and all of our faces, because we're just like laughing at each other and having a great time. And I just gives me giddy feelings. Okay, so let's dive in. All right. So, my first question that we're just going to open the floor up to, and I'm going to try to talk less and let you guys listen to their experience more, because I think what's going to be shared is a lot of what I would share, and then I'll fill in any gaps. So, we'll go in the same order. And what I really want to know is, when and how do you know when to date? Katie, you can go first.
Well, I am actually here to get the answer to that question. No, I think that my experience has been, I remember a podcast that you did where you talked about a toddler running around with a knife. And that was me, is me back in the dating world. I am running around. I have no idea what I'm doing. But I just like magically heard this other podcast the other day that said, like, set an intention for why you're actually dating. And I was like, oh, whoops, I forgot to do that. And so when I went into it, I was like, I'm going to date anyone. I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm going to like say yes to every date. And that's not the way to do it. Like, I mean, maybe it is the way to do it for some people, but like I did not set an intention. And I think that has to be the first thing. Like, why are you even doing this in the first place? And I missed that step. So I'm going to go back.
What is,
again.
Talk about this. What is your intention? Do you have one yet? Did you set one?
No. I mean, I think like I was just, my unintentional intention was to just try it out and see what happened. And I think now I need to say, like, why am I actually doing this? Because it's kind of been a crash and burn epic failure on so many levels. But really that taught me, like, I need to figure out why I'm doing this in the first place.
I love it. So good. So pretty much the answer to that question is like, oh, when you've set an intention, then it's time to date.
Like when you know what your reasoning is for it. Yes. Yeah. Like if you have a good reason and you're okay with that reason, then I think it's time.
Oh my gosh. Does that sound familiar, you guys? You make a decision and you like your reasons. So good. Okay, Carol, what are your thoughts about when to know, or how do you know when to start dating again?
I can relate to Katie so much on this. I think for me, there was two main things. The first one was learning to be confident in my own skin and become myself, because I remember going on dates when I was also running around with a knife. I remember going on dates and like I would just try and be exactly what they wanted. And that led to very unintentional dating paths. So I think that's one really important thing, is learning to be comfortable in your own skin and learning to, have enough confidence that when you're out there dating, you can be yourself and you can have your own opinions, because you can pretend as much as you want, but eventually it's just gonna blow up. And that happened to me a few times. So I knew that point I was not ready yet. The other thing I think is definitely having a purpose. I definitely have to agree with Katy on that one, because whatever your purpose is, people date for different reasons, but if you're I remember I went out and I was like, yeah, like I want a serious partner, but I didn't know why. And because of that, it led me to dating, or to going on dates with people that, just wanted a fling or whatever it was. So I think whatever you're looking for whatever you're deeply looking for attracts that same thing. So if you're looking for someone who wants a serious partnership, then, if you show up like that, then you're going to attract that same person. So I think those were the 2 points for me going out there. I was like, I need to be able to be confident enough in my skin to have my own opinions and everything. And also, just knowing what I want as I go out there.
And as Carol, as you were talking, it really reminded me of the belief plan and massive action plan you outlined at the very beginning. So as a Braveheart alumni, when you redo the program, when you decide to renew and do the program again to focus on something else, you have weekly alumni calls where the very beginning, we lay out a specific belief plan and a specific massive action plan, which includes multiple steps. And one of those steps is your why, right? One of those steps is figuring out the compelling reason why. Just like the Bravehearts who are getting over their ex, why is it compelling to get over your ex to you, right? And that's going to be different for everyone. It might be compelling for me to date because I want to create baby Marilyn, but it might not be compelling to someone who doesn't want kids, right? So you have to come up with your own compelling reason why. So love it. Too good. All right, Jessica, tell me your opinion on when and how do you know when to start dating again?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, nobody was more surprised than myself that I got to this point, because going back to action plans, it was never in my realm of thought that I could even get to this point in 12 weeks and 3 months. And it probably, I know in our last one-on-one session, Dorothy, both of us were giddy at the fact that I came to you. So basically in week 11 of the program, I'm driving in my car and a song comes on and I'm just like, I could see myself at my wedding having my first dance with my husband to this song. And it was like the sun came out and a chorus was singing behind me. I didn't know where that came from. And I was just like, what happened? What's going on? So I bring that to you and I'm like, Dorothy, I had this thought that I could have a relationship again, and a good one. But that's going to require dating. And I just don't know if I'm ready to date. And you just asked me, you're like, well, when does anybody know when the right time is to date? What would you tell your best friend that came to you with the same situation? What would you tell her? And I was like, well, basically that if she feels ready, then it's probably time, to test the water. And me being the super scientific scientifically minded brain, I have to look for empirical evidence all the time. So I was like, all right, it's time to just test it out and see what happens. And that's how I knew.
I love it. And we talked about the scientific method and all of the things. Oh, so good. Yes. Okay. And so literally thinking back on that call, Jessica, brings me to tears thinking about it, because it was just, where you were week 1 in comparison to where you were week 12. It was just so good. Same thing with all of you. I think that about Katy too. I just remember you were like, I hope I can get there. And then look at where you're at now. Just mind boggling. I love it so much. Okay. But when it comes to the dating and knowing when to date, I feel like the way that I describe this to people in the program and on Q&As and things like that is, I kind of compare it to attachment versus commitment. Are you attached to the idea of who it needs to be and how it needs to happen? Or are you more committed to creating the desired outcome you want in your life? And so I take that attachment versus commitment concept and apply it to dating a lot of times with Bravehearts and also with myself. So after having gone through my breakup last year, I spent 3 months. I literally put myself through my program, 3 months getting over my ex. And then I decided that I wanted to date immediately following that because it's very important. One of my desired outcomes is a husband, is a family unit, is Marilyn, my baby, my hypothetical baby. And so when those were my goals, I was like, absolutely, I want to date. And I implemented a bunch of the tools that I teach my clients here, and that's what happened. So I love all the points that you guys made. I think it's super helpful and super useful to all the Bravehearts, especially like being just, it sounded like the overwhelming consensus is being intentional and liking your reasons, because I think a lot of other people will have opinions about what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And I really like to redirect individuals back to what is your truth and what's acceptable to you and what's important to you. And do you like your reasons? Because if you don't, then it's going to feel not right. Does that all make sense?
Can I add something to that?
Yeah, of course, Carol.
As you're talking about opinions and having your own beliefs about it, I actually had a close family member say to me, like in the process of me trying to, date, he was like, why can't you just be okay on your own? Like, why do you have to have someone else? And I'm like, it's not even about that. Like, like just having your own opinion and having your own reasoning for it is really important, because, a lot of other people will have their opinion, and yeah, okay, he's okay on his own, but maybe my desire in life is to have a partner and a family, and I needed to get to terms with that and say that's actually okay that I want that. Like, it just because someone else doesn't want that doesn't mean I can't have that in my life.
I'm so glad you said that, Carol, because I think that is a really big thing when we talk about dating in general, is like, is it okay to want what I want? Yeah.
And there will also be times when you don't feel like you're ready, and then times where you do feel like you're ready. Like, I think it's very up and down.
Yeah, up and down, and it's a journey, which reminded me too. One of the points that I wanted to make is like, and it goes back to the reasons why, but are you dating to feel better? Do you think dating is going to help you feel better? And that, I would always be very cautious about that. If you notice your brain thinking, oh, if I go on a date or if I get on the apps and someone gives me attention, I'm going to feel better. That's when I would say, hold off, learn how to make yourself feel better, learn how to feel the feelings, create closure, and get excited about your future. But if you're dating because you want to build connection and you want to find your life partner and you feel confident and solid and secure in those reasons, that's when I'm like, yeah, let's do it. That sounds like a fun time. And I think what stands in the way of that a lot of times is what Carol just talked about, where other people have opinions about, oh, you need to spend X number of months alone. Like, you've jumped from relationship to relationship, and sometimes that's the case. And maybe you just want to be alone, and that's okay. It's just recognizing, is that coming from yourself or is that coming from somebody else or someone else's viewpoint? I love it. Okay. So I wanted to talk with all of you about, and we're all in varying stages here. So talk about the stage that you're in, but what were your biggest hesitations to dating, and how did you, or how might you still be overcoming some of those hesitations if you have them now? Who wants to go first? Katy, we'll just go in the same order, make it easy.
Okay. I think that some of my hesitations are, I am a mom and I have kids. And I know that my last relationship ended because the other person wanted their own children. And so one of my hesitations going into this is kind of falling back in that same trap of getting into a relationship and then finding out that we can't get on the same page. And so I feel like I'm very cautious as far as like, I need to know right away, what are your deal breakers? And I feel like I have my own deal breakers. And, you know, when I'm looking to date someone, I need to make sure that these things align right off the bat, because I don't want to go through that process again.
I love it. I think it makes sense. It really goes back to like the want match stuff that I've talked about in the past of, do you want the same wants? And I think a lot of times we hold off on the important questions thinking we're not allowed to, or we're not supposed to talk about those things right away. And obviously, I'm probably is to no surprise to anyone who's been listening to the podcast for a while. I do it backwards, and I'm like, no, I'm going to ask you all these things right here, right now. And some are in indirect ways and some are in very direct ways. And I like to know those things right off the bat, just personally for me. And not everyone will want to do that. And that's okay. All right, Carol, what are your hesitations?
My hesitation currently, like the stage I'm at in now, and we talked about this briefly just before, but it's still working on focusing on the outcome rather than the particular person and how it happens, when it happens, and where it happens. So I tend to I'll meet a person and I'll get really excited about who they are and the fact that we have like so much in common, and that's fine and everything. But I tend to be like, okay, he likes this, I like this too, so he has to be the one. He has to be the one. He has to be the one. And I end up making up all these things and like almost completely ignoring the things and like that I don't like or that I couldn't deal with in my life, like having in my life, just so that that particular person has to be the one. So like when it comes to that, yeah, I'm still learning to not particularly get attached to the situation and not sort of not so much making up a fairy tale, because I mean, we can make up fairy tales that if that's how you want to live. But just, yeah, becoming more attached to, okay, this is the outcome I want. Despite who's in it, I'm going to create it, and it's going to happen the way it's going to happen, but it's going to get there.
Love it. I love attachment versus commitment. All about being committed.
But it's very challenging. Like it's something that I think is going to be working on like the whole time, and you know,
and the
learning.
crazy part is it's like you'll accomplish it in one specific area of your life and then you'll see it pop up in a different. Like I feel like I got to that place in business of being just more committed to creating the kind of business that I would like to create. And then instead of being attached to it, and then I saw it happen in my relationship, and then I saw it happen in dating, and then I saw it's like one thing from the next, you'll see it pop up. But yeah, an ongoing thing. All right, Jessica, tell me your thoughts. What were your hesitations, or what are your hesitations now, and how are you going to overcome them?
I would say my biggest hesitation going into dating was really like, am I ready for this? Because well before starting the program, as I was 2 months into my heartbreak, I definitely tried to feel better by dating again. And that crashed and burned. I left each date feeling so numb and so lost. And I realized like, okay, this is not getting me anywhere. This is not progressing my healing. Clearly, there's some underlying work that needs to be done here. So still, second time around of going back into dating, my hesitations were, am I really ready for this? Am I going to feel the same things I did when I was trying to feel better? Am I doing this for the right reasons? Am I going to see a better outcome? But I realized like one of the key takeaway things I have from the entire program was like, just accepting yourself being curious about things, like just find a way to relax into something by being curious about what you're going to learn. So I think it's more about being more, to focus more on the process versus the outcome for me. And another way to help that is like now when I'm on a date, well, after the date, I've really learned to evaluate. So to think about, what I did that I liked about the date, like what went well, what didn't go so well, and what do I want to do next time about it? Because it really helps my brain sort of sort out all of the anxious energy I have after a date and do something constructive with it. So I can show myself, how do I want to feel next time I go on a date? So it's really helped bite that, am I ready to date? Because I'm doing all of these steps in place that really helps me feel prepared to take it all on.
So good. And that's perfect for your scientific brain.
Yes, it makes it very happy.
It's like we've got data and now we're tracking data, we're collecting data. So great. Mm-hmm. I love it. Something that didn't come up with any of you, which I found fascinating, but I'm also not necessarily super surprised. What about comparing? I think, Carol, we've talked about this before in the last round where you were nervous about comparing to your ex. Like you had hesitations going into it because you didn't want to be comparing like these new prospects to your ex. And I hear all the time from Bravehearts on like Instagram or through the podcast or whatever. So anyone have any thoughts or opinions or techniques or anything that you guys want to talk about there?
I'll just quickly say, yeah, I remember back like at the start of this program, it was intense how much I was worried about comparing. That was probably my biggest fear. And to be honest with you, I don't even remember where it dropped off. Like it was all of a sudden that I just stopped comparing. And I think it was when I focused on my outcome and what I wanted and realized that my partner, like my ex, was not that person. Like he's not the type of person that I wanted to be with, and he had a lot of things that I wouldn't want to carry through in my life. So I think that's where it dropped off for me. But yeah, that was definitely a huge thing to overcome for me.
What about Katie or Jessica? Either of you have anything to say?
Yeah, a lot like what Carol said. Like I remember, before when I tried dating before, definitely like doing all of the comparing. And I'm like, well, you don't like this and you don't do this and you don't do it this way. But like Carol said, it just kind of dropped off somewhere. And I don't know what made it drop off. And I don't know like how or why, but it definitely like at some point I just stopped doing that.
I would say for me, I think I went into this knowing that I would automatically try to draw some comparisons between my ex and then whom I might be on a date with. But I just sort of tabled that because I'm really focusing on how I can be curious about this date, how I can be curious about the person that I'm on this date with, what I can learn from them. So that's kind of reworked my brain into like, it's turned it into a game. Like how is this person different from my exes? I basically just flipped it. And that's really helped me.
And that reminds me, Dorothy, you actually made me write a list. I remember you made me write a list of all the attributes that I actually wanted. And I started comparing it to the list instead of my ex. And that just slowly got easier and easier as I went on through the dating world.
Oh my God, I forgot about that exercise. Carol, we did do that where, yeah, it was absolutely, because that's, yeah. Carol, it was kind of great actually that you were going through the program focused on dating, because I think you were going through things as after I had done them myself, which was so great. Because I remember I tried that list out for myself first where I have a number of lists on my phone, and one of them was attributes that I wanted based off of the things that I found in my last relationship that I didn't. So I would flip them and I look at that, and 100% when you start comparing to the list that you actually want instead of your ex, that very much benefits. But what I think the most beautiful part about what all of you mentioned is just finally recognizing that the desire for your ex is so low that you aren't looking for your ex. So therefore the comparison isn't useful to your brain anymore. I love it. This is such a fun conversation. Okay. So the last thing that I want to talk about before we pop off here is, what tools will you be using while entering into dating and future relationships in your future? Katie.
Well, honestly, I'm going to take a little break and I'm going to reevaluate and I'm going to pull in some of what Jessica said, and I'm going to use some data, and I'm going to really approach this from a completely different place because, like I said, everything kind of crashed and burned and everything kind of fell apart. And then I realized like, oh, I have no idea what I'm doing or why I'm doing this. So I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to reevaluate and do it differently.
Intentionality. I love it. And also, I think it's funny that you're using crash and burn, and I'm not going to coach you, obviously, because you did not give me permission to coach you today. But I find it fascinating that you're using crash and burn. And I'm like, we've only been out of the program for like what, like a week or two? And so you've given yourself a week or two, and then you're describing the week or two as crashing and burning. So
if you would have seen the week, you would be completely understanding where I'm coming from.
I love
but
it.
I'm laughing about it. I'm laughing about it because it's so ridiculous, but I am laughing about it.
Well, and I'm so proud of you too. Like just the fact that you're laughing about it is a huge like difference from how you would have handled it 12 weeks ago. So I love it. All right, Carol, what are some tools that you're going to take forward?
Definitely agreeing on the reevaluation. I think after every date, I have been doing that, which has been really helpful. Protocols, so many protocols. Mainly because I have fears. Like I have fears about going into dating. Like, is he going to ghost me? Am I going to say something stupid? Is there going to be something that he doesn't like about me and like who I really am? So I've done protocols for like all of these, and yeah, it's definitely very helpful reminding myself that I need to stick with who I really am, and not try and it's almost like I said to I had this thought the other day where I was just like, I'm just tired of trying to impress. But then I had to retrack back on that, and I was just like, there's a difference between being yourself to impress and unintentionally impressing. So it goes back to that as well. I'm also going to be using boomerang thoughts a lot because and just sort of connecting it like intentional thought creation into that. Because yeah, I have a lot of the same thoughts going into dating, and it's just about reminding myself that I have my back no matter what.
Love that. And for those, I don't know when the last time on the podcast I talked about boomerang thoughts. So if someone's listening for this at this or listening to this for the first time, a boomerang thought is a thought that just comes back time and time again. And so what Carol is referencing is you can create protocols and you can create thought scripts and you can do something else called intentional thought creation. And it's all really about being intentional and allowing your brain, giving your brain like a step-by-step process on what to do when those boomerang thoughts reappear over and over and over again. So love that for you, Carol. That's exciting. Jessica, share with us.
Yeah, I definitely will echo the protocol thing. That's something I knew that I was going to have to do well before I really started dating, because I could see myself getting completely, basically just spiraling down the rabbit hole of whether it was a really bad date, whether this person just ghosted me all of a sudden, or they were a no-show for the date. All of these scenarios that I knew were just going to create a lot of drama in my brain. So I definitely took the time to write out protocols on what I was going to think. So basically I threw in some intentional thought creation as well in that. So I would be like, if this scenario happens, this is what I'm going to think about it. This is what I'm going to feel. And this is how I'm going to just deal with it. So that way I felt like I was prepared for if that situation happened. But definitely still approaching every date with curiosity, like what can I learn about this person? Who are they? What kind of things do they love talking about? So I would end the date like knowing that I made this person talk probably more so than myself, so that I could feel like I really went in there, got a sense of who they were, and was just curious about what might happen with this person on that date. Evaluating, of course, that's really big. It really helps quiet all of the noise in your head when you exit something that might have made you a little anxious or nervous. So that's super helpful. And basically anything I could do to just help me relax into the process of dating. So yeah.
You guys have so much knowledge. Can we just take a second to acknowledge how much knowledge you have? How fun is that? So much goodness in this episode. It's going to be so good. Is there anything else that you guys want to leave the brave hearts with today?
I did want to mention, because I've been noticing this lately about we went through in the program, we went through that roller coaster of emotions. And I've been noticing this a lot, like lately going through dating, that like I will get really, really giddy when I'm talking to someone and it's going really well. And then obviously if it doesn't go well or something happens, I will fall down. And I'm just learning now to accept that and that it's okay. Because at first I was like, okay, I need to like calm down. Like if it's going really well with someone, I need to calm down. But then I was like, no, actually, I want to feel these emotions. Like, I still know that I'm going to have my own back if it doesn't work out, but like I want to allow myself to actually feel these emotions. So it's almost like a breakup where you're going over and under and around the roller coaster of emotions. But yeah, it's accepting that and being like, that's actually how it can be.
I'm so glad that you said that, because I think a lot of people are like, oh, I can't let myself feel the good feelings. And y'all know me, I love love and I love falling in love. So head first into the love bucket. So exciting. Good. All right. Anything else? Anyone else want to say or share any little nuggets of wisdom that you think might be useful for anyone going through this?
I think one of the things that was helpful for me is just realizing like if it doesn't work out, it really has like nothing to do with me. Like, I mean, I might have made mistakes and I might have said the wrong thing, but ultimately, if it doesn't work out, like it's not a reflection on me as a person. It's not a reflection on, the healing that I've done or anything. It's just, it wasn't meant to be. It didn't work out, and that's okay.
Yes. And going through the healing of your breakup really helps you get to that place when you can do that with someone you've dated or seen or been in a situationship for however long. That gets to the point where you're like, oh, I could do this again and again and again. I can not get attached, or I can get attached and allow and notice it and become aware of it and not be so stuck in the aftermath of it, not making it mean something about me, not making a story up about me based off of what other people are doing. That's really what I mean when I talk about getting over your ex, right? That's what we're learning, is how to not be at the effect of other people and how to not be at the effect of who is in or not in our life, including these new love prospects. So good. Amazing. All right. I love you all so much. Thank you so much for providing all of this insight to the Bravehearts. I know they're going to love this episode, so I appreciate all of you. Thank you. If you're loving the How to Get Over Your Ex podcast and you want to learn how to get over your ex in 3 months or less to build a life better than the one you thought you had with your ex, I would like to personally invite you to my next group course where we take everything you've learned here on the podcast and apply it to your life. Come check it out at www.lifecoachdorothy.com.